Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier and this is the Piracy Show. Now, of course, Friday's video we were talking about inventory spaces within ships and personal inventory. And I've been a big advocate for a long time to getting personal inventory, like a lot of systems, into the game as quickly as possible. And not just so that we can test them, find bugs, blah, blah, blah. But for me, when I look at the armor that's available in the shops, you know, the undersuits, all that stuff, to me, I see a nightmare. And it's not because, oh, I don't like that this suit is pink, or that, you know, this suit looks like this instead of looking like that, and they should have given me different color options for this or anything like that. What I see is a system that I think that in a way, because it hasn't kind of, you know, realistically, you know, materialized in the Star Citizen universe, and the way that we use it is completely nonsensical. The problem is that it has created a situation where both the developers and the players themselves are are largely out of touch with just how impactful this system is going to be. We have had, the magical friggin' mobyGlas of holding for far too long in the game. Far, far, far too long. And I don't really think that people fully appreciate the nightmare of managing personal inventory without making certain allowances for it is going to be. I don't think people are fully, in touch with how this is going to pan out and how this is going to feel in the game. And I guess the best way to kind of explain this is, is I was using the hammerhead as an example. And I was saying, you go to various closets and you would open up an inventory and it would kind of create a virtual space where you could pull a whole bunch of things out of that realistically could not be stored in that space. And that would solve a lot of the issues with the hammerhead. And the hammerhead is actually kind of an excellent example, but most ships in Star Citizen, when you really start to think about it, are woefully inadequate in terms of personal storage space for equipment. Because I was using the example, let's say you go into your hammerhead and you could have all your different stuff for all your different environments, but that's just for you. That's just one person. If you think about most of your multi-crew ships, you would have to carry those options potentially for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different people within your ship. And that's when you start to look at the inventory space beyond just yourself, but other people as well, crew members as NPCs, or maybe even, other players. You start to realize how woefully inadequate that storage space in a ship is. And, if you're going out in a combat ship like, a Retaliator, all you basically really are going to need is a straight up spacesuit. But what happens if you shoot down a ship and you have to go and you have to land in an environment? You have to have cutting tools and all of this. You have to have a certain backpack to carry all that, added equipment that you might need. All of a sudden it becomes something of a nightmare, right? And you start thinking about multiple crew members. Where are you going to keep all these things? I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. And even if you look at a ship like the Retaliator is kind of a perfect counter argument to the problem of the hammerhead. Because if you walk upstairs in the Retaliator, you're confronted with all these gun racks, which is far more weapon storage than something like the hammerhead actually has. And that's kind of the crux of the argument that I'm trying to make here, is that people aren't really they're not fully realizing just how many different suits that they're going to need for Star Citizen, all the different spacesuits and all of these, different problems and complications that you may run into. Now, most players right now, when they're playing the game, oh, hey, you know what? Let's go to Daymar and let's ride around in a buggy. You're walking around probably in some form of heavy or medium armor that is good enough on temperatures that you're like, well, one size fits all, right? One size fits all. It doesn't really matter. And this is how most players interact with Star Citizen right now. is they kind of go out and they get a suit of heavy armor because that kind of gives you the best temperature ranges, and they just do everything in that suit. But that's going away. And there's other factors there that could further complicate things. If you think about it, I'm in a desert environment. If I'm going to get into any kind of combat in a desert environment, well, I'm going to need desert armor. I'm going to need those kind of coloration options. So I might want to blend into the background a little bit. And if I'm walking around in a bright yellow suit or a bright white suit or a black suit, I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb. And it's going to make it that much easier for me to shoot, or for someone to shoot you. And, this is kind of going back to, when I was making fun of certain suits of armor, back in the early days of Star Citizen. I was sitting there and I was saying, like, I have no problem with you putting a bright pink option out there, but, as players, you got to kind of think about it, is that we don't get markers for enemy players in the game. There's nothing to just say, oh, this person is here. We're going to be reliant on much more on observation than we're going to be like, oh, here's a blinking marker that tells you exactly where that player is. So in a tactical sense, you don't want to walk around in something that doesn't blend in with the environment. So all of a sudden you're like, well, I need heavy armor for desert. I need heavy armor for snow. I need heavy armor for a very hot environment. All these different, possible situations. This environment is mostly reds and blacks. This environment is mostly whites and grays. This environment is blues. Things like that. Things that you're going to have to think about. All these different options that you're going to have to carry with you. And not only just for you, but potentially for the people that are serving aboard your ship as well. And so when you think about it, I mean, when people go and join you in a multi-crew thing, are they going to show up with a shipping container? Like back in the olden days when people used to make a transatlantic voyage and they would have trunks and trunks full of clothing and stuff like that they would have to move around with them. I mean, you want to go on a multi-crew mission, you're not exactly sure where you're going to go, or maybe you are sure. Like, oh, we're going to go to Daymar, then we're going to go to Yella, and then we're going to go to Microtech. Well, you might run into at least a couple of very distinct environments there that require very distinct types of armor. But when you get to Microtech, are we going to be forest or are we going to be Arctic? So I might need a forest green option. I might need an Arctic option. Yella, I might want darker grays. Oh, Daymar, I want obviously some sand colored options, things like that. And when you start to, expand that to multiple people, and this is the thing, that it's because of this insidious mobyGlas that we've been carrying around with us for far too long, and managing our personal inventory through that horrible device, that we've actually become so used to it being there that a lot of people, I don't think, are really conceiving of the universe when that is no longer the way that we do things when it comes to managing personal inventory. It's not like you have a little, magical device that you just push buttons and all of a sudden clothing just appears on you. Equipment just appears on you. Like, you're going to have to equip these things. You're going to have to pick them up, take them from a storage location and put them on your back. Now you think about, we've just dealt with armor, but what about equipment? Oh, am I going to need certain hacking equipment? Am I going to need scientific equipment? Am I going to need salvage equipment? Am I going to need, all different types of weapons? Am I going to need to have a shoulder-launched missile launcher? Am I going to need a grenade launcher? Am I going to need a flamethrower? Am I going to need, a submachine gun? A shoulder, an AR, basically, an assault rifle. Am I going to need, all these different things? Pistols. What type of bullets? That sort of thing. Grenades. All this sort of stuff that anytime you go around in the game, even if you have a big ship like a Mercury Star Runner or something like that, you're now going to have to kind of store all these things in these shipping crates and then just load them onto your ship. What's that going to do to your cargo capacity? The impact of the mobyGlas and the way that we've been interacting with our personal inventories has been really insidious. And I don't, I'm sorry, but I don't think that most people fully grasp what this has done to their playstyle and what this has done to their experience of Star Citizen. If you think about the much debated Prowler, for instance, like let's say here I'm wearing heavy armor suitable for like an Arctic environment, but now I need to change up to a desert environment. When you apply rigid rules of reality to things like this, the Prowler, it becomes a useless ship. Either that, or it massively limits what you can do in the game. Like let's say, I've switched to my desert armor. I'm in my Prowler because I got to go do that cave mission where I got to attack the pirates in the cave. So I have no real space to store all that desert armor because realistically it's very big and it's very bulky. So I'm going to have to pre-stage that suit of armor on the Prowler. But the problem is that the Prowler doesn't have enough storage space for that suit of armor if we're binding things strictly to reality. So I can't fly the Prowler with that heavy armor on. So what do I do with that armor? Right? And let's say and it also limits what you can do with missions, because let's say there's a part 2 to that mission. Oh, go in and take out, XYZ terrorist, pirate, whatever, in this bunker or in this cave down on Daymar, then take these things and then go to a science station on Yella and then put these things back where they belong and reactivate the beacon or something like that. An interesting mission that leads you to different environments. Realize that the Prowler, that ship that you spent $400+ on, I think the price is actually $425. I'm not exactly sure. Correct me in the comments below. But think about that, all that money that you spent, and now that ship is a dead ship. Because you really either you completely limit the missions that you can do with it to such a degree that the Prowler it ends up being a waste of money. Well, I got a stealth ship that I can sneak in a boarding party with absolutely no suitable equipment. All the different weapons you might need. There's really not enough storage space for everything. Grenades, yeah, all that stuff just goes out the window. And now all of a sudden you're realizing that your $400+ starship is essentially a paperweight. It's not really useful for anything. And you're probably going to have to upgrade all the way to a Carrack just to get 5 or 6 people, with all the different armor and options that they may need for all the different environments that they may encounter, plus a ground vehicle to get around on the ground, all these different things that you may need. You can't get onto the ship that's supposed to be there to do that type of job. Now, with the Prowler, you can land a lot closer, so you don't really need a ground vehicle. So you can kind of push that one aside. But at the same time, when you think about all the different environments that you may go into, and you realize you can't pilot the ship with a heavy suit of armor on, what are you going to do? Is everyone just going to come in with arms full of armor suits and guns and ammo and just throw it all on the floor in a jumble and then just say, well, just in case? Do you see what I mean about how insidious this thing has been and how it has kind of warped not only our as players perception of how we interact with the universe, but the game developers and how they develop the game, because they're developing the game with the idea that the mobyGlas is always going to be there. Everyone's talking about this personal inventory thing, but no one's really thinking about the long-term impacts. Now, several months ago, there was a suggestion on one of my videos. It was a viewer comment, and I can't remember who said it, but it was absolutely a brilliant comment, because it would mitigate some of this problem. Was the fact that, when you go into the armor shop and you buy your suit of armor, there is the undersuit. And why not make it so that, your resistance to hot or your resistance to cold or things like that were resident in the undersuit itself, not in the armor? That was actually, low key, a very impactful and very smart idea. Because if you think about it, if you were to make it so that the undersuit is what gives you your resistance to the environment rather than your armor, that opens up a lot more options, not just in terms of what you can wear. And, we haven't really even gotten into the areas of self-expression yet, but in terms of what you can wear for armor. But this would also make it so that you would have a lot more options as to where you can survive, where a heavy suit of armor with just a decent coloration option could work in multiple environments, even though it may not really be intended for that. I mean, that allows you to kind of skirt some of these problems and get away from some of these problems and make it so that even if you're in a fighter and you can't wear any armor whatsoever, or only just a light suit of armor, you can still survive in very challenging environments. That goes a little bit of the ways to kind of solve this problem. But realistically, when you think about all the different color options, all the different environments that you may go into, you quickly see how this spirals into a situation where at just about every planet, at just about every star system that we're going to visit, we're probably going to have like these massive clothing shop style wardrobes that we've just stored everywhere in the universe, because the idea or the nightmare of physically transporting all of these things to wherever we want to go in the universe where we may need them is just, it's so inconvenient that the biggest player expense in the game ends up being setting up, various armor, reserves and weapon reserves at all these different locations in the universe just in case we may need them. Right? I mean, you could see that how a new player getting into Star Citizen would be flying around in their Aurora, just setting up, okay, here's all my light armors around Microtech. Here's all my light armors and guns around Crusader. Here it is around Hurston. Here it is around Area 18, because I don't have enough space to carry all this stuff with me. Never mind the rucksack. I mean, if you ever need a rucksack for, a mission and you need all that storage space in the back, what ship has enough space to carry that? Remember, it's not like it folds down and fits in your pocket. This is a very big, item. Think about the storage space that is going to take up in a ship. And you've just eliminated like 90% of the ships in the game. God forbid you're on a multi-crew ship and you're going along with a friend. You see, like, how quickly this has, everyone's had their nose down. The people who are making the armor, the people who are making the ships, everyone's had their nose down in their little thing, but they haven't looked at the broad impact that this is going to have once these systems fully come online. And I think that in the end, this is really the only option, is to kind of just create a storage locker, and you might see like a couple of items on the surface of the storage locker, but when you open it up, you click into your personal inventory and there's way more stuff in there. Like a gun rack might have 3 or 4 guns on it that are just like a representation of some of the, or a sample of some of the guns that are stored within that space. But once you open it up, there's 20 guns in there, and there's all kinds of grenades and stuff like that. I'm fully on board with the idea of, having to pick the right gun for the right job or the right grenade for the right job. But yeah, I think that where we're going to kind of tussle with the system, and where the system is going to be a little bit tedious, is, kind of where, every mission you're going to have to go, and you're going to have to go and manage your inventory. I want this gun, I want these grenades, I want this armor, blah, 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 blah. But that is going to be where the rubber hits the road and people have to make some serious choices. But at the same time, most of the ships in the game right now will never allow you to make those choices because of, if we stick this to a very strict and realistic inventory storage system where everything takes up space, most of the ships in Star Citizen under that system are DOA. You're never going to fly them, and you're never going to use them because they have little practical value, and you're going to start making your ship decisions not based on, performance or weapons or, outward appearance. You're going to make your ship decisions based solely on closet space.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.